Let's go to the golf course. Right now, we're going to keep this incredibly raw and just want to talk about what I've learned not only building the Mendoza Baseball Academy, but really building a business and learning a little bit of the intricate details that I didn't expect while building the Mendoza Baseball Academy. So, I guess first and foremost, I didn't realize on what being a leader really means away from the baseball field, right? And as you can imagine, my name is behind the name of the company, Mendoza Baseball Academy. For those that are wondering, yes, we help high school baseball players and especially serious 10th and 11th and 12th graders play in college, getting them the resources as far as the physical development, the mental development, and the recruiting guidance. That's what's inside my triple play program. But really, that leadership that it takes to lead a team, lead a vision, make sure that we're all on the same page and we have that collective vision on where we're moving, what we're trying to do, and of course embodying that as a founder-led brand. A lot of people don't understand, obviously, the toll it takes of making sure that you have your hands in everything, the responsibility of making sure that everyone is being taken care of, everyone hits their goals, everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing as far as their job. It takes a leadership type of person to understand how to go about that, right? And the conversations that need to be had sometimes when people are underperforming or need a little pep in their step, right? These are the things that I didn't understand that I had in me during my playing career. And I think it is pretty interesting because when I was in high school, I was very, very shy. I could barely even speak. And it was weird because I haven't been taking as much of the strategy sessions and the eligibility reviews recently. I have a lead advisor do that right now. I still take a handful. I'd say probably around 5 or 10% of the calls are routed over to me, which I appreciate. I like hearing, the stories of, the prospects that are interested in joining into my academy. But I had an individual yesterday that I believe they were in Wyoming, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. It could have been Colorado, but I think it was the Pacific Northwest. And it was just really eye opening because I saw myself in this high school baseball player. He was a junior, by the way. He was a 2027 grad. I believe he was a middle infielder, right hand pitcher, just like myself when I was in high school. And when I asked him, and typically one of the very first questions that I ask is, what are you struggling with, right? What is it that I could possibly even help you guys out with, right? And the thing that he said, it kind of shocked me. Let's be honest, it kind of shocked me because I didn't expect him to say this, and I haven't heard this honestly in a really, really long time. What he said reminded me of me being in high school, me being in college, and me even being in pro ball. He said that what he's struggling with the most is being vocal out there on the field. And to be fair, I didn't have a problem per se being vocal out there on the field. I was always super vocal. I loved being vocal, especially out there on defense, playing shortstop. I felt like I was the quarterback, that this was my time to shine. This was my time to be vocal. But outside of playing shortstop, outside of that defensive, being a captain or being a leader or being the quarterback, right? Shortstops are typically the quarterback. I didn't ever feel super outgoing. I didn't feel like a leader in the dugout or in the clubhouse, right? And a lot of you high school baseball players don't understand the emphasis of when people say in the clubhouse, right? In the clubhouse and in the dugout, completely two different things. In the dugout, you guys are at war, right? If you're on a team, you're at war against the other team, and especially in professional baseball. If you don't believe this, when you play 160 games in a year, you're at war with that other team. Sometimes you're at war with your own teammates. Sometimes you're at war with your body, right? And trying to overcome those struggles is difficult. So being in the dugout, guys, that's way different. Being a leader in the dugout, that's different because everyone is in this game mode. We're all ultra focused, and that's when we're ultimately, very, sometimes comforting when, a pitcher has a bad outing. We'll tap them on the shoulder. Hey, you got it next time. Things like that. If you strike out in a big situation, hey, you got it next time. That's that comforting. But and that's all in the dugout. In the clubhouse, that's where these relationships are being able to be built, right? That's where you learn a little bit more about the family of these players, where they're from, their origin story, who they are as people, guys. And this is something that I feel like I've been able to experience because obviously I played professional baseball, but sometimes people on the outside looking into pro baseball, whether it's minor leagues or in the big leagues, you guys don't necessarily always, um, you know, make us feel like humans, right? The way that you guys tell us things, I'm gonna make a U-turn right here, so I'm holding on to the camera. Hopefully it doesn't fall over. But sometimes the way that we feel in the game, it feels like we're at a jungle, guys, and you guys are screaming at us. You guys are demanding, and especially players out there, right? If you want to really impress someone, especially a player, a professional player, say please and thank you, right? If you get an autograph, hey, may I please get your autograph? That goes such a long way because we hear, obviously, as professional athletes, so many kids, and especially the manners of some of these kids, and usually those manners are handed down from the parents, and we don't hear please and thank you very much. So like little things. But anyway, getting back to my point, we don't always feel like we're human, right? Because of the way that we're treated. And I'm gonna tell you firsthand, like I'm driving in my car right now. I'm in West Palm Beach, Florida. I'm gonna go practice some golf. I might even play a couple of holes if there's a break in action. But I'm a human being. I wake up the same way that you do. I put on my socks the same way that you do. I put on my pants the same way that you do, right? And that's something that like my dad would say. He would say like, everyone puts on their pants the same way because I was a kid, and of course understanding that way of thinking that these professional players are holy, they're great people, they're this and that. And that's where also it's you have to be careful meeting some of your heroes, right? Luckily enough, throughout my professional career, I didn't meet any big time names that I was like, oh, I hate that guy, right? Like for the most part, I got lucky, but there were some times where, I wanted to have a quick conversation with a certain player, right? And didn't really get that opportunity to be able to have that conversation. I was like, okay, whatever. I never took that out on the person though. And I think that fans, especially if you don't get an autograph, you guys take that out on the person. You have to realize, like, we are at work when we're playing baseball, right? We can't sign an autograph for every single fan in the stadium, right? So the expectations are already at a disadvantage for us. But the biggest thing that I really wanted to kind of embody with that little background story is we learn what we're up to and what we're facing each and every day in the clubhouse. That's where we play cards. We'll play games on our phone. I remember we loved playing Monopoly. There was times where I almost missed my exit. But no, there are times where family stuff comes in. Let's be honest, like that's gonna happen. There's gonna be times where you have to miss games. There'll be times where some of my teammates would go on paternity leave because their wife was having a kid back at home, and they only had 3 days. And if you missed that birth of your child, you were required to come back and play baseball when your wife is quite literally in labor. So very, very challenging things that I never had to live through. But either way, the thing that I'm really trying to understand, and I'm not necessarily understand, but share with you, the listener, is I guess if I had to really collect my thoughts, when building out the Mendoza Baseball Academy, I'm realizing that I did such a poor job becoming a leader in high school. I didn't value it. I didn't value being a leader at the college level. And there were times where Elliot Avent at North Carolina State University, he told me he wanted me to be a leader. And I just didn't understand the value in being a leader on an ACC Division I program. Like, I didn't see the value in that. I kind of, to be fair, I kind of had a little bit of an inflated head when it was my junior year, and I was like, this is my year to shine so I can get drafted. When I should have had a little bit more of that philosophy of, I will get drafted as long as my team is performing well. Because if my team's performing well, and this is a tale as old as time, I probably messed up that saying. I'm terrible at phrases and quotes and things like that. If you know me, you know me. But there's no better feeling in especially minor league baseball if you're on a AAA team that absolutely, especially from a position player standpoint, if you're on a team that absolutely mashes, and the reason why is because your numbers are naturally going to be inflated if the entire team is mashing. So, for example, like the Durham Bulls, they were always so good. They were just a solid team. They did things really, really well. And as far as an offense, they took care of business. They moved runners. They just were a very solid team. So guess what? Everyone's RBI numbers were up. Everybody's double numbers were up. Everyone's average were up, because sometimes there would be those long innings where the pitchers were just dogging it because they were like, holy cow, this entire lineup rakes and there's no break in the action, right? So there's no better feeling being on a successful team, because naturally your numbers will get inflated. I didn't feel that, and I didn't understand that back then when I was a junior. I was on draft boards. I was about to get drafted. I knew I was about to get drafted. I had conversations with, big league scouts, and they were like, "Yeah, you're gonna get drafted in like the 3rd to 5th round." And I was like, "Let's go." And I just kind of didn't value the aspect of being that leader. So now building out my Mendoza Baseball Academy, it's not a, it's not a like a nice to have as far as being a leader to my team, right? As far as my internal team, the people that help, everything go round. My advisor, my setters, my helpers, basically. It's not a nice to have to be a leader, right? It is a must have. There's this thing, I think it's the Moscow. It's like a must have, a nice to have, it's an okay to have, right, or whatever, and it's like it's not needed or whatever. So it's basically like levels of priority on what's needed, especially for job positions and stuff like that, responsibilities. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that leadership that I didn't know that I had in me, it's shining very, very bright right now, and I'm really proud of myself for number one, acknowledging that, and number two, valuing that, right? Because that leadership is needed. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I've had many conversations about what my role is really at Mendoza Baseball Academy, and it's no different than if I was a player development coordinator for the St. Louis Cardinals or San Diego Padres. In a sense, yes, I'm trying to develop, obviously, my players and making sure that I'm leading them in the right direction, so that way they're able to see, their dreams and goals come true, and they're able to conceptualize the work that is required to become elite, because it is an unfathomable amount of hard work to become elite in this very competitive world, guys. If you haven't already known, like, yes, I'm competitive in baseball. Yes, that's what ultimately got me to that next level in professional baseball. But I'm competitive as a human being and a characteristic trait, guys. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, I am competitive to the core. That's why I love golfing right now. I shot the worst golf of my entire life 2 days ago on Sunday. It was terrible. I felt in my head. I wasn't having fun. But I'm still going out here because I love competing. I compete on social media. I compete here on YouTube. I compete everywhere because that's who I am as far as my habits and my DNA. So I'm going to compete as a leader, not only for your son, obviously, if we're working one-on-one together, but I'm also competing to become the best leader for my internal team as well. So these are the things that I'm just able to kind of like see. And that player development, right? It's also personal development, right? I'm trying to develop my internal team to become the best versions of themselves. No different than the players, right? I want them to become the best versions of themselves as well out there on the playing field. But these are the things that I'm starting to understand that really truly matter. After 7 years of professional baseball, after playing in the World Baseball Classic, after playing D1 baseball for 3 years, and I was a starter on varsity all 4 years of my high school baseball career, these are the things that matter. So I can't stress it enough. Being a leader is just a huge huge area that I think a lot of people just pass over. There were so many. We're on a little bit of a turn right now, so I'm holding you guys, holding the camera. But there were so many times in professional baseball, man, where there'd be a guy that was like a second string catcher in the big leagues for like 10 years, and everybody loved him. This guy was like a walking legend as far as like who he was, right? And for the young guys, you would say like, oh, he's him, right? Him meaning like he was always in a good attitude, right? He always was friendly with everybody on the team. He was a hard worker. He led the team in the right way. He led the team in the clubhouse the right way. He led his pitchers the right way in the dugout, right? Like he was just like the perfect baseball player, and sometimes the skill was like significantly lower than most professional baseball players. And this was my time like in AAA. There was a couple of guys that I'm thinking about. I'm not going to necessarily say names, but they were in AAA. They had a good decade of big league experience, but these guys were just elite human beings at the AAA level as an everyday catcher, which is a hard job in by itself, right? Being a catcher, it's very demanding on your body. But having 10 years of experience in the big leagues and then playing in AAA after your 10 years, like some people can get salty, guys. I'm going to be honest with you. Like there were salty teammates that I had that were very upset that they were in AAA and not the big leagues. So imagine how a 10-year big league veteran must feel. Well, this specific guy that I'm referencing and I keep thinking about, he just embodied everything as far as a walking, living legend of a human being, right? A good person, a family man, a workaholic, obviously is there in support of you in times of need. Let's just think like a pitcher did really, really bad. He was able to lighten the mood, things like that. Obviously, he had a pretty thick wallet as well. So like there would be times in AAA, he treated the entire team for really nice dinners or, took care of the tab at a night out or whatever the case may be. So little nice nuggets of leadership, right? And again, when I was in, professional baseball, I didn't value that because I never had someone to tell me these things. And these things, in my opinion, are incredibly valuable. This is like the sixth tool, if not seventh tool, right? The sixth tool is like general baseball IQ. The seventh tool, I think, is leadership. Like if you're having that leadership quality, and for maybe a name that's a little bit more memorable, especially to the younger audience, I remember hearing a little bit more of a playing profile on Max Clark. So Max Clark got drafted a couple years ago in the first like 10 picks or something like that. And from a very high up, perfect game scout, very, very high up, by the way, he basically said that this guy is friends with everyone. And you wouldn't expect it, right? But like he was talking about Max Clark, about just like any team he joins into, like he's the guy that everyone hates playing against, but once you're on the same team as him, like you are going to live and die with him, right? So like having that leadership quality is something that scouts will see and acknowledge before a team even gets an individual drafted, right? That's why they go in such depths of understanding who that player is before they invest millions of dollars with a signing bonus, right? And another aspect of us trying to be humans, right? And there'd be times in my professional career, we were told by the general manager, the GM, that we are basically like stocks. We're either going up or we're either going down. And that kind of crushes our soul, right? When he's speaking in front of basically the entire minor league system and he refers to us as a stock. A stock doesn't necessarily have a heartbeat. A stock doesn't have a family to feed. A stock, I could go on and on. I think you guys get the picture, right? And it is true. In their perspective, we are assets. These assets can get injured. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I broke my wrist twice when I was in AAA when I was with the Cardinals. I also pulled my groin, right? There are things that will happen in a player's career that are kind of just like out of the ordinary. It wasn't supposed to happen, but they definitely hurt your stock, right? and it's unfortunate again that we had to hear those things, but it was very true. So kind of just going back into a little bit of a snippet of information of being a human, right? When you get drafted, just like I was saying, they really take account into who you are as a person, your leadership, you as a as far as your grades. They're gonna want to hear stuff about you at school. They might ask your teachers who you are, how you act in class, if you're respectable, things like that. But yeah, getting back into it, kind of the conversation of us being assets that they're investing in at the professional level, and also at the college level. Um, they make us do like measurements of everything of our body, right? Measurements of hip flexibility, leg, hamstring strength, grip strength. That's how I re-broke my wrist, unfortunately. There's just so many tests where in spring training, typically it's the second day that we are all there. We have to do physicals, we have to do blood work, we have to do EKGs, we have to do a vision test, we have to do a P test, right? We have to do everything under the sun to make sure that our bodies are up for the test of being a professional athlete. And since I'm a couple of years out of the game, like I remember seeing someone run like a long distance running, and he was like just drenched with sweat, and I looked at him and I was like, I started feeling that heartbeat of that guy that was running right next to me, like on the sidewalk. I was just walking my dog. I wasn't running, but I could feel that heartbeat pounding. And then I kind of had a aha moment where I was like, whoa, like I used to be able to do that no problem because I was training every day for that high level of endurance, the conditioning that is required at the professional level, at the college level. I used to work out like crazy, like 1 to 2 hours a day. Sometimes I would lift after a full day of spring training. Like there would be so many things that I would just do, and I didn't realize how elite I was as far as an athlete when I was in my playing career. Because, guys, there's just these times where you have to acknowledge the work that you're putting in on a consistent basis it has to be more than your competition. If it's the same as your competition, you're not going to ever improve. You're not going to ever separate yourself. And that's where at the professional level, it always felt like throughout my day, I was judging myself. And this is, comes with pros and cons, but I was always judging myself on what food I was eating. If my better self or my 10.0 version of myself, would he be eating this? Would he be, drinking coffee with creamer, or would he just drink coffee straight black? Right? I would ask myself like, okay, how am I trying to get that competitive edge almost each and every day? And looking back at it, like, was it healthy? Like, I don't know, but like at the end of the day, that's what made me me. I'm looking for that competitive advantage. I'm looking for the little tweaks that are going to go that extra mile, because if I'm not, who is? And if I'm not, somebody is. So these are some things that I just like to like almost live by when I was playing professional baseball, and I've really seen them come true when I'm creating the Mendoza Baseball Academy, when I have a team that understands the vision of what we're trying to accomplish, the things that we see as far as our mission, vision, and values, making sure that we're all aligned on what we're trying to achieve, which is really to help every single high school baseball player out. And I'll leave you guys with this, because this is something that I repetitively say to my team is, we are trying to help every single high school baseball player out. And not every single high school baseball player will be able to join into the Mendoza Baseball Academy, and that's a fact, right? But are we able to help out student athletes in the DMs? Absolutely. And by the way, our DMs are open on Instagram especially, but like we can have that conversation to see how we can possibly even help, where you're at mentally, and ultimately having that conversation. We can also help out really anybody completely for free as well through content just like this, right? I want all of the families and players that work with me to watch this content, because I want them to realize, I'm a human being. I put on my pants the same way that they do. And I think through little times that we remind ourselves that it is possible, crazy things can happen. And another thing that kind of came up on an eligibility review a couple days ago is, sometimes I ask goal metrics to certain players, right? And the goal metrics, and this player said, if that's a realistic goal. And I said, okay, well, we want to be careful with that word realistic, right? Because everything's realistic, guys. It is realistic to be able to play college baseball. It is realistic to throw 90 or have 100-mile-an-hour exit velocity off the tee. It requires work, without a doubt. But obviously, if we just set these goals and we don't change anything, and we're just on this hamster wheel, spinning our wheels and not taking action, and nothing's really moving that needle forward, then yeah, sometimes those goals won't be realistic. But for the ones that are taking action, the ones that are, jumping into the pool head first rather than trying to check the temperature with their feet, for those individuals that are really putting in the work and putting that effort in each and every day, the sky's the limit. So I'll leave you with that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the car ride over to the golf course. I'm going to go and try to hit the ball straight right now.